Ah, yes, it is time. Again, for the second annual My Singing Monsters Complete Timeline and Lore video. Comes out every year after Anniversary Month. Yes, this time with visuals. So it's not an audiobook anymore, although I guess it could be, since if you wanted it to be an audiobook, you could use it like that. So get your snacks, get your drinks, get whatever. Let's go to the lore, okay? Have fun on the other side. Also, if you want to contact me, or email me, let me know anything about this, if you have any comments. I am boxmsm74@gmail.com, none of that is capitalized. And, my friend code is 810942446JI on MSM and GFW28RFH on Dawn of Fire. My Twitter is @CupsScreaming, and my Discord is box, all caps, this time, #8976. So, message me if you have any comments, Thanks. Before we start off, I thought I would preface this. This is a mostly canon, free-use community resource, updated whenever anything new related to the lore is revealed, with which to make anything that it may be needed for. Say, if someone were to make a fan game that they wanted to make fit into the lore somehow, they could use this to do it, although it is canon that all fan projects are canon, just in a separate multiverse of their own, keep it away from us. Or if someone wanted to make a deep dive YouTube series on the lore, they could use this as well, and any other projects that this may be needed for. Although, keep in mind that this, like any piece of media, is fallible, and may have extra content not directly stated by the monster handlers in any form of official media, and that in the same regard, it may lack anything the monster handlers have said or that is stated in any form of official media. Thank you. Chapter 1, Monster Prehistory. Section 1, The Primordial Cosmic Hush. The Multiverse. The universes in this multiverse are connected on a world tree similar to that of the Yggdrasil of Norse mythology, whose name is the Stablo Mjekricha. The multiverse consists of many universes, such as Thingya, the Thumpyverse, the human world, the Prism Dimension, and the monster world, among others. The Thumpyverse and Thingya are the eldest of these, and also have started to sprout some multiverse-bearing trees of their own from seedlings dropped from the Stablo Mjekricha. The monster world would seem quite young when compared to these two, but comparatively to the human world, it is very ancient. The Stablo Mjekricha sometimes seeps sap, which is known to us as amber, or also as the binding magic of the trees. When any being from one dimension goes into the other, it conforms to that dimension, as we'll see with Prismatics, Rare Wellbox, Bill, Spirit, and Whizbang. The beginning of the monster world. What monster world? There's nothing here yet, certainly no monsters. There's only silence here. This time in the 2B monster world is called the Primordial Cosmic Hush, as it was primordial, cosmic, and silent. Then, all of a sudden, a big bang-like event known as the Big Clangor disrupts the hush, sending it out a cacophony of sounds furiously that fill the void cacophonously for eons. As a result of this event, 12 beings known as the Celestials are born, guardians of the elements. These Celestials, incarnate forms of elemental energy, are the first inhabitants of the monster world. Furnost, Celestial of Fire and the First Celestial, is said to have been forged in the living core of the monster world, also known as the epicenter of the Big Bang-like event. Hornicle, Celestial of Water, is said to have been formed directly from that cacophony of sound, from a wave which swelled and crashed upon the void. These waves eventually crashed upon the surface of the monster world, giving rise to the living ocean. Syncopite, Celestial of Crystal, is said to have been formed from when the very silence of the primordial cosmic hush grew so silent that it was compressed by its own weight and collapsed in on itself, forming a dense, luminous mass. Also coming from this event were the magical, time-warping diamonds which appear everywhere around the monster world. Each of these Celestials spread out among the new world and took residence up among the stars, with each living within their metaphysical state of their own constellations. In this metaphysical state, they each resembled compact, egg-like orbs, connected to the specific areas of their origin, and inspired by the constellation shapes about them, each was imbued with their own elemental powers. Over time, the prehistoric cacophonic clangor echoing throughout the monster world subsided, and silence took over once more. After some time, the unmistakably deep, sonorous voices of the Colossals were heard. These Colossals, nameless, disembodied spirits of creation, were inspired to harness the power of creation to make the monster world a richer place. Although nameless wouldn't really be the correct term, they do have names, yes, but they aren't pronounceable to us mortal humans. The the Colossals were amazed by the world that lay before them, specifically in the Celestials' elemental affiliations. There was also something else that they saw too, the emptiness. A blank, and most importantly, silent canvas for them to work with, to shape to their liking. The first task the Colossals faced was to teach the 12 Celestials to sing. Each Celestial was taught to perform music in a style unique to them. The Celestials thus became the first singing monsters. Next, they built a mysterious piece of clockwork for the Celestials upon which they would gather and sing in harmony with each other. This place, called Starhenge, as well as connecting the Celestials together, connected them to both their stars above and their elements below, as it was positioned halfway between the stars and the living core. After this success, the Colossals wished to create a world full of harmonious singing monsters that could be combined of both the influences of nature and music. Now, I think it would be important to distinguish the difference between Celestials and Colossals, with there being some confusion and gray areas on the subject. While the Celestials did come first, Colossals are the more powerful of the two groups. Celestials are guardians who watch over monsters with their element, while Colossals are the more creatory, godlike beings who are more alien and unknown to us mortals, with their very names being unknown and able to confuse a well-learned individual. Colossals also taught the Celestials how to make music in the first place, sort of creating the basis for what the entire world would be like. So, yeah, they are the more powerful ones. Chapter 1, Section 2, Creation. To test their abilities of creation, the Colossals went off to a pocket dimension off the prime reality of the monster world. This place would act as a sandbox for their experimentation of their creative powers. Here, they built the foundation for what would one day become Ethereal Island. In the early days of the pocket dimension, it was closed off to interdimensional travel. Their first experimentation was with the animation of inanimate matter to turn it into living beings. Statues of beings plucked directly out of the Colossals' imaginations were carved out of bubblerite and installed on the early Ethereal Island, which a few statues can still be found in a special place called the Ethereal Meadow. If exposed to a special process they pioneered called Life Formula, also known as the Spark of Life, the statues could turn from bubblerite into living, breathing monsters, such as the primordial Monculus. Using this method, the nascent world would be populated. The Spark of Life itself was a very powerful tool in the Colossals' arsenal that let inanimate matter become animate via the imbuement of vitalizing energies. This power was later also found to be in the power set of the element of electricity. Specific interactions with bubblerite in the pocket dimension led some of it to turn into crystallium, the first ever crystal. Once experimentation was complete, the Colossals once again turned their attention to the main dimension of the monster world, known as the prime reality, using crystallium as the base element upon which to build it. Using what they had learned in the teaching of the Celestials, the Colossals joined together in a great song that shaped and powered their creative willpower. The Great Song is a very powerful tool in the arsenal of the Colossals, which allows them to create when they join together in song. Building off of the still active and potent living core of fire, the Colossals drew power and energy directly from the multiversal tree, the Stablo Miehricha. Taking some of its sap, they infused the living core with crystallized amber and musical potential. Harnessing the power of the Stablo Miehricha, the Colossals established what was to be the crowning jewel of the monster world, the continent. This landmass sits in the direct center of the infinitely vast expanse of the living ocean, directly above the living core and directly underneath of Starhenge. It was from the continent that Starhenge 2 got its power, what allowed it to stay levitating. The first element in this world was the element of fire, and from it, the natural elements were born. Because of this, it is regarded as the most powerful element of them all. As the natural elements each came about, they each got lands of their own added onto the continent, except for fire, which does not get its own land, but instead has a volcano leading directly to the core of the monster world, which represents its quiet, guiding presence to the natural elements. Each elemental land of the continent had its own crystals fashioned after the pocket dimension's own crystallium. The plant lands had Vigidium, cold lands had Fersium, air lands had Skylight, water lands had Aquanine, and the earth lands had Stonix. Although there were no fire lands, there was still a fire-affiliated crystal, that being Pyrosite, which looked the most similar to crystallium in appearance, as if it had just been recolored from blue to orange. Through the combined efforts of the Colossals' great song, the first monsters came to be and began to populate the monster world. You may suspect that we jumped directly into the Dawn of Fire, but before that, there was a much simpler time, a time before the monsters first sank together in unity. In this time, monsters evolved, adapting to their environments, not yet unleashing their musical abilities. Several breeds of monsters who share each other's likeness had co-evolved together, giving rise to the first monster families. Pummels could swim without need of their planted membranes, and so could Fanglers. One such group even wished to touch the sun. The original common Canis, now known today as rare Canis, were very populous, more so than their today common cousin, and same with rare T-Roxes. And one peculiar breed decided to develop a different, non-lung way of breathing. Extraordinary! Chapter 2, The Dawn of Fire. Section 1, The Dawn of Fire. The Dawn of Fire. When monsters decided to band together for the first time. The continent was a vast landmass of unity between all monsters of all species, where young monsters could roam between the different elemental lands. Once matured enough, these young monsters could teleport over to the Outer Islands. The Outer Islands exist in an infinitely vast expanse over the living ocean, and are populated only by the correct eligible monsters. Here, monsters find their forever home. The original Outer Islands were Space Island, a dense sphere of rock encircled by rings of stone, Cloud Island, a series of platforms made of clouds with paper birds flying all around it, and Cave Island, situated in a cavern deep underground, sitting in a subterranean water pool. From the Celestials' divine perch of Starhenge, they watched over the monster world, guiding and protecting all who bore their elements. Although they usually stay as dormant eggs in their constellations, needing to be summoned downward by the powers of star charts and cosmic dice. Those are mysterious objects connected to the celestial powers of Starhenge. Technology was booming during this age, so much so that it was referred to as the Golden Age of the monster world. They had developed economic markets, trade relations with distant lands, machines for breeding, and even a teleporter. Although, upon further inspection, it seems the Colossals may have indeed played a larger part in the structure's creations than we realize, maybe creating all the structures. Similarly created around this time was the Crucible, a structure known for unlocking the evolutionary potential of a monster. We'll touch on that later. Discovery and adventure were high too, as they decided to claim a sea leviathan as a rock on its back, of all things, as an island for them to sing and celebrate doing so upon. This place was called Party Island. A strange, extra-dimensional portal called the Prism Gate appears, and may be sentient? When monsters enter it, they exit as colorful new creatures, who look completely different from the original, yet still make the same sound. Extraordinary! Monsters coming out from the Prism Gate may be red, blue, green, yellow, purple, or orange, and prismats, which come back through the gate with returning monsters, can be used to increase the chances of getting specifically colored prismatics. So many monsters went into the Prism Gate that the Outer Islands needed to construct hotels on them to fit the overflows of monsters. From the strange world beyond the Prism Gate come the Outer Island crystals. Powerful, magical crystals that increase the potency of prismats to turn a monster into whatever desired color may be. Party had Confettite, Space had Nebulox, Cloud had Aurorium, and Cave had Quartz. Chapter 2, Section 2, The Cataclysm. This great era, as all things, must eventually come to an end, and the Colossals could sense that its end was not too far away. Two in particular were discussing how to ready the monsters for the imminent doom. One suggested training the individual musical ability of a monster, and so decided to imbue its spirit into an arena-like island the monsters had built. Inspired by the actions of its fellow Colossal, the second Colossal decided to make its own island to ready the monsters, but instead of focusing on the individual, it instead focused on the group, on unity. It then made an accompanying prophecy about how monsters being united and singing together would help to bring balance to the monster world, and took upon itself a great monster encased in amber to act as the island's centerpiece. This tale of two Colossals would later be found carved into some pillars on the Colosseum in a text known as Monstroglyphics. These decisions proved to be timely, as something very big was just around the corner. But before we get to that, there are several events in the timeline which we know happened sometime in the old past with no definite place. We shall discuss them here. The first of these is Amber Island, an island made to act as a seed vault and protection of all monsters of the fire element specifically, held in the higher plane with the full spirit of the Fire Colossal, also sometimes called the Queen Colossal. This Colossal, unbeknownst to many, sought out aid from a space and time-faring individual known only as Cub, who prototyped early vessel designs by capturing candle wax from the living core within a bucket, thus called Cub's Wax. The second event is the Magical Sanctum. When the Great Titan Enchantler tried its darndest to become a Colossal, it, upon finding out that this was near impossible, fled to the previously locked-off Pocket Dimension. There are also hints that Ethereals were freed from the Pocket Dimension about the same time the Cataclysm took place, so that would be a third thing. But now, back to your regularly scheduled Monster World-ending catastrophe. Then it came, the cataclysm that would end the Dawn of Fire. We are still in the dark about what had ended the Dawn of Fire exactly, But what we do know now is that something had disrupted the Colossals and made them forget how to sing together in unity and harmony, the things that this world was based upon. The great discord amongst the Colossals proved too much, sending a great quake towards the continent. The continent began to break into multiple pieces, with each elemental land becoming its very own island. The fire elementals, not yet having a land to call their own, were led by a cannon to climb into the volcano before that same volcano sank to the bottom of the living ocean. The colossal spirits decided to sacrifice themselves for their creations and imbued their spirits into each of these elemental lands, as well as any other lands they could find, trying to save what they could, using their life force to stop the chaos. They shaped and formed the islands to both their likeness and their elemental affinity, resulting in the current natural islands, among others. The Colossals were also not the only ones who made an effort to help the continent, as Galvana, Celestial of the Electricity, decided to make a backup power generator of sorts that would act as neurons for the Colossals, in an effort to help the islands, as she knew that the Colossals would be draining all their energy, saving these islands. These then became known as the Woboks, and were put into vaults on each of the continental islands, other than the volcano of the living core, and as well as the Ethereal Island. As the continent came down, so would Starhenge soon do also, as a random energy generated by the continent, although not yet, because it still had backup energy. But when that fateful day would come, the Celestials would turn themselves into statues and restart their entire life cycle to hopefully save them from the collision of their lofty perch with the ground below. The Great Pause, also called the Interlude. Nothing happened, and so much nothing happened, that the Great Pause is not comprehensible on a human scale of time. Timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly, as they say. The separation between the element of fire and the other natural elements has caused the element of fire to drift slightly in breeding time and chances, making it become its very own class. The natural monsters eventually forget about the fire monsters entirely. Sometime after the dawn of fire, the magical elements would come about, with their islands taking the places of the outer islands, as the outer islands are presumed to have disappeared into the Prism Gate, but not Party Island. That slippery Leviathan is still out there swimming into the living ocean this day. The Colossals are now ever fastly asleep, and will be for quite some time. In their dream space, the mythical monsters and mythical island are formed. As the mythicals, dreams of the Colossals, become more clear and known, this will surely signal the end of their long slumbering. Like when you wake up right as dream starts to get good. And we sincerely hope, for the sake of the monster world and its creative deities, a large influx of mythical energy is felt soon. Over in the human world, sometime during the early 20th century in London, England, Dr. Warden E. Spurritt, a very curious naturalist and inventor, somehow makes contact with the monster world, sparking the field of monster handling as a whole. He went in, made discoveries of and on the natural islands, and duly noted them down and recorded them in voice logs. While on an interview, Dr. Spurritt stated his theory of different variants of monsters based on their environmental changes, which would later come true. Twice. The man seemed so enthralled by the monster world that it seemed he'd one day go in for good and never come back, and that is evidently what happened. His teeth fell out due to living ocean water and improper hygiene, much like a monster sent through the Prism Gate, becoming unrecognizable, save for his classic monster handling hat and his adventurous huzzah cry. Dr. Spurritt's work would not go unseen, as the Canadian game company Big Blue Bubble would one day find his works and decide to make a game on it, keeping open a portal for monster handlers and monster exchange students to come through. Several monsters who came through and wanted to stay include a mammoth, eventually becoming part human due to the entire Prism Gate thing, being dubbed Bill, a furcorn, and a pom-pom. Chapter 3. The Contemporary Era. Section 1. The Contemporary Era. The Contemporary Monster World. The natural islands, remnants of the continent, are the homes of the natural monsters. These islands being Plant Island, Cold Island, Air Island, Water Island, and Earth Island. Gold Island, a paradise on another plane of existence, is where natural monsters go when they are matured enough, although particularly those who remember the cataclysm and the destruction of the continent, because there, they can have that togetherness feeling from the continent, not being separated among all the natural islands and that jazz. Also featured on Gold Island is a castle, which has an infinite amount of beds, so any monsters can be on the island with no worry of overpopulation. The natural islands, on the other hand, are in need of a castle upgrade, so they construct the extravagant castle. Continuing Dr. Spurritt's work is the adventurous young monster handler Matt, who somehow got a hold of his journal. A new class of monsters is discovered, being called the Seasonals, as the monsters in this class come back for festivities yearly. Each natural island has its own seasonal, and each seasonal has its own event. Plant Island has Punkleton, who celebrates Spookticle. Cold Island has Yule, who celebrates the Festival of Yay, specifically the day of which is called Yay Day at the surrounding times referred to as Yaytide. Air Island has Schmoochel, who celebrates the season of love. Water Island has Blabbik, who celebrates Extravaganza, where Blabbik likes to steal monster eggs and paint them, and then hide them all over the island. And Earth Island has Hula, who celebrates Summer Song. And Hula also likes to hang out in Air Island with her buddy Problem and prank people a lot, Pastry-side and all that. Gold Island also celebrates a season, despite not yet having a seasonal for it. It celebrates Anniversary Month, also known as the game's anniversary. The monsters decide to go green and switch to diamond mines less harmful to the environment, but before they do so, they discover strange vaults containing hundreds of strange boxes that they call the Wobox. When the correct monsters enter into a Wobox, it powers up and joins the population of the island's song. It is reported that the interior of a Wobox is very fun, almost like a playground, haha. A new monster appears on Plant Island being called the Sugarbush, host of a new element in class known both as Legendary. The Legendary element is an element symbolizing human inspiration to the monster world, and it seems that the Sugarbush was inspired by country music artist Christian Bush. They discover some monsters of the new Ethereal class, a class hailing from the Pocket Dimension. Ethereals, like the seasonals much before them, each have one single element monster on a specific natural island. Plant Island has Gasp with the element of Plasma, Gold has Grumpire with the element of Shadow, Air has Reba with the element of Mech, Water has Geode with the element of Crystal, and Earth has Humbug with the element of Poison. The single element Ethereals can then be teleported each to Ethereal Island to breed with each other. Ethereals, although having 5 elements to work with, only have singles and double element monsters. It is said this is because the elements are too out there and strange, so a combination of too many of them would be way too unstable. A new island called Sugarbush Island is discovered on the Seam, a region where the monster world borders the human world, and is where the legendary element Sugarbush of Plant Island can go to reunite with his family, the Sugar Fam, and sing a tune reminiscent of Love or Money by Christian Bush. The element of fire is still seen in effect in the monster world, and the powerful wishing torches that improve breeding chances. Chapter 3, Section 2, Curiosity and Discovery. With all this exploration happening at such a rapid pace, even more castle upgrades are needed to house the new monsters. The new Paradise Castle is created after the likeness of Gold's very own infinitely vetted Crystal Castle, and was made with the consultation of the multiverse's finest architects. They even call it the be-all and end-all of monster living arrangements. So sure that no new castle upgrades would ever be needed in the future. New variants of monsters are discovered and are classified as rare monsters. Globes, glowing extra-dimensional beings who provide a stunning light display for the islands, blip into existence carrying plans to build a device called the Fuser to bring more of them into the monster world, which, in the spirit of diplomacy, the monsters generously built for them. Other than summoning new globes to the monster world, the Fusers can also fuse 2 globes together to make a globe of a completely new color. It is also rumored that they come from that extra-dimensional portal known as the Prism Gate from the Dawn of Fire. Just as the last of the rares were discovered, a brand new island along the Steam is found, where natural monsters from all across the multiverse can come in unity and work together. If the monsters can sing enough, their voices can reach the resonant frequency of Amber, shattering a large fossil atop the central tree stump and unveiling the mysterious monster encased inside. Is that Kana? Single element monster of the element of fire? Yeah. This Kana still remembers life back from the Dawn of Fire and tells everyone about it, even taking them underground to view ancient cave paintings of the long-lost fire monsters, and even giving them a map of the ancient continent, although the Amber has taken quite the toll on its well-being, so its memory is still a bit not there, and it only remembers things when it sees cave paintings of them. The Wobox have been a bit more inventive lately, with select specimens traveling over to the human world and infusing themselves with guitars, vocoders, record players, and all sorts of 80s paraphernalia. These specific monsters have also traveled into a human world computer and have taken inspiration from error messages of all things for their song, creating the rare Wobox. Some other specimens have been seen doing something a bit, how should I put this, inventive. Being the only monster of your element and class is both hard, so the Wobox decided to do something about this. If it couldn't find friends, it could make them. It decided to carve these imagined playmates, called Wublins, out of stone and use the supernatural element of electricity's ability of the spark of life to zap them to life using eggs bred on the natural islands. It then created a map of sorts of Wublin Island, which somehow got into the hands of Investigator Blabbit, who showed it to the rest of the monster world, although it was cut up into multiple pieces that had to be reassembled. Then, when it was satisfied with the number of playmates that it had created for itself, it joined their chorus, revealing itself as their creator. It even made its own Colossal for its creations to roam upon. This robot is quite eccentric. It even decided to take up residence in the Pocket Dimension. Maybe Wubbox is really a super ethereal class monster instead of a supernatural class monster? New monsters living in burrows appear atop the natural islands, and are known as Dipsters. These monsters are timid and afraid of the light, so they only pop up every now and then. An alternate timeline of the natural islands is found where some items from the Dawn of Fire were not destroyed by the Cataclysm, such as an old teleporter. This is known as the Mirror Timeline, or the Mirror Dimension, and is home to the Mirror Islands, alternate versions of the natural islands. Also on the Mirror Islands are pink plasmatic strings, as well as random things belonging to that island's ethereal, such as Gazorbs, Grumpire Smoke, Rebro Branch, Geode Crystals, or clouds of Humbug Toxin. A new island is found along the seam, an island where humans are free to compose their very own melodies for monsters to sing. This island is known as Composer Island. The Colossal on this island seems to open its eyes and wiggle its teeth, which is said to be an effect of being on the seam and so close to the human world. Strange, new legendary island monsters who can somehow speak English begin to pop up on the natural islands, giving lyrics to their songs. These monsters are known as the Wordos, and they get their lyrical inspiration by eating relics, which are pure musical potential encased in amber. Wordos, being bearers of the legendary element, are inspired specifically by several employees from a Canadian game company known as Big Blue Bubble. Pearlsona is inspired by Sarah Parsons, Talker is inspired by Dave Kerr, Magpie is inspired by Maggie Park, and Stewarb is inspired by Matthew Stewart. Dipsters continue their expansion by popping up in the Pocket Dimension. Chapter 3, Section 3, Rediscovery. And also, subsection here, every class gets its own island. Crash! Starhead suddenly crash lands on a random colossal in the near middle of nowhere. Here, statues of the Celestials can be found. These statues are actually the Celestials' powered down forms that they became to protect themselves when their hovering home would eventually crash into the surface of the monster world. They can all be awoken with the power of the Spark of Life by zapping eggs from the natural islands, albeit they are children now and not really remembering anything. Studies of a new monster variant known as Epics have been found written in a book, known as Monsters Are Marvels, by Dr. Warden E. Spirit, the first ever monster handler from London somewhere. Epics are specifically noted for being evolved forms of the common monsters to suit their environments, such as Epic Mammoth who shovels snow, whereas Common Mammoth does not shovel snow. The volcano from the continent resurfaces. The Cana of Tribal Island, beckoned by the call of relics from the very living core itself, leads a band of monsters down through a cave system to look at cave paintings, where they learn of the natural islands originally being one, how something split the continent, how the Colossals imbued themselves upon the islands, and how the monsters ventured into the living cores of the volcano for safety. They continue onwards through the caves and find Firehaven, an island where the element of fire and its monsters had been hiding away ever since the end of the Dawn of Fire, waiting and hopeful that they would one day again see their natural friends. Now they were ready to start anew and spread out amongst the farthest undiscovered reaches of the monster world. The fire monsters, now being a re-established class in the monster world, naturally wished to expand and have an island on the surface like everyone else. They tried searching for the outer islands and found nothing, so they had a Glauel scout out over the living ocean for some land, and it found a small sandbar. Upon this sand, the fire monsters, along with some of their natural friends, made an island for themselves out of blown glass and called it Fire Oasis. All the fire monsters now had 2 islands of choice to live upon, and now live evenly among them, although it's not displayed in the game this way. Thanks to the great power of ingenuity and unity shared among all monsters, they were able to construct this colossal-like blown glass structure within a week. New island skins are found on new beasts known as Titans. Titans like to take over other islands' places. Plant Island has the Harvard Titan, Cold has the Sweaty Titan, whose snow is actually dandruff, Air has the Gigacheap Titan, Water has the Glubber Titan, who also seems to be the elder version of that Leviathan from Party Island, which its name was actually seen first in a book held by Octopus by the name of Mysteries of the Living Ocean. And Earth has the Hahu Titan, who scribes all monster world history over its body. Shame we can't read it. So what exactly are Titans? Titans are like the Colossal in the fact that they are island-sized, but differ in the fact that they are not spirits. Titans are naturally large creatures, so large in fact, that they can support full ecosystems atop their heads. Water Island's Glubber is similar to a giant catfish or Chinese dragon, and Air's Gig Chief is similar to a giant owl, so some may equate them to the megafauna of the monster world. Also shared between them is the fact that we know what their children look like. The humongous Giga Chief's child are yellow little chicks that you can hold in your hands, and the Glubber has a life cycle that goes from the glub hole, where they are black dots swimming atop the surface of the living ocean, the globlet, where they develop fins and venture into the waters, and the Glubber, where they finally are their full-grown selves, the most beautiful sea creatures literally ever, living in lagoons with other Glubbers, bestowing the gift of Glub to those who it finds worthy. Titans also like to take other islands' places. This is foreshadowing. Somewhere out there in the monster world, amongst the shadows and the stories, the new mythical monsters make their appearances on the Planetary Islands and bring some of their favorite decorations with them. At the same time, some adventuring fire monsters wants to go further and further up out of their caves goes absolutely stellar when they found the new fire frontier. Only having 3 elements, they sent out requests for reinforcements. But which element was to come? Cold, earth, or air? Chapter 3, Section 4, The Magical Saga. Trolled! Turns out it was the element of Psychic winning this competition all along. The new magical class has come out of hiding, and along with their grand reveal, the island's third eye opens. The Psychic monsters tell us that this island is in the spot of an island from ancient times that suddenly blipped out of existence. They also inform us that the Titan of this island is named... Could it be that Psychic Island really took the place of Space Island? Dipsters somehow tunneled through the waxy fire haven to the glass-blown fire oasis, bringing their dirt with them when they pop out on the other side. A new seasonal comes crashing in on Firehaven. This monster's name is Gobbledygord, and it celebrates Feastember. It, as well as being on Firehaven, is also on Fire Oasis, as it claims to be seasonal for all Fire Islands. High above the clouds, the next magical island, Fairy Island, home to the fairy elementals, is discovered by a wandering Bob-Yog tower with a Kana sleeping on it. Whole thing. This new island, high up and surrounded by heavy mist and heavy fog, rests on the Faceod Titan. Could this have been the location of Cloud Island? Deep underground, deeper than ever thought possible. The next magical island, Bone Island, is discovered by a Stog who chased a bone down a hole in Firehaven. This new island sits in a subterranean pool of water and is covered in various sized bones, crystals, and fossils of fauna and flora all alike, and is on a titan named Necrol. Could this have been where Cave Island was? With all the new rares and epics being discovered, the natural islands are facing a housing crisis. Apparently you can't always trust the multiverse's finest architects. After holding an interview with several monsters to see if anyone has any bright ideas on how to fix the problems with several laughable tries, Akana presents the idea of using the crystals that were once in abundance all over the continent back during the Dawn of Fire to construct new castles. With the fire monsters remembering both the Dawn of Fire and them living underground, they have become the mineralogical experts of the monster world and told the naturals exactly where to dig to find their crystals. These castles are known as the Crystalline Castles and vary from island to island, depending on the crystal used. This would mean Viridian Castles for Plant Island, Ferocium Castles for Cold Island, Skylight Castles for Air Island, Aquanine Castles for Water Island, and Stonix Castles for Earth Island. Each of these new Crystalline Castles has 3 tiers on its upgrades. The first is the Raw Crystal, second is the Polish, and the third is the Carved Crystal, where the crystals are set in jewelry. The crystals have specified podiums for each tier of crystals to sit upon. An earthquake strikes! The ancient Colosseum rises up out of the ocean depths. The monsters take out a boat to sail to it, dubbed the Spirit of Adventure, which takes about a month to do. On this island, monsters can battle each other to level up their individual singing abilities, but no violence, it's all just a friendly song battle to put the other opponent to sleep. They can also play dress-up. Their costumes can give them new abilities to use in their battles, but only on this island. No My Little Pony cosplay for any potbellies on the other islands, sadly. The final magical island, Light Island, makes itself known when a sponge blows some Anniversary Month candles way too hard, sending a huge gust of winds towards Firehaven, blowing out all the candles that have been lit for who knows how long, leaving the fire monsters in total darkness. One by one, each new light elemental comes out from the darkness. This island, on a titan named Phosphora, is much like Party Island, as it is nomadic completely and moves constantly, having no one stable location. It is also said that this island's titan is extra-dimensional and comes from the Prism Gate like the globes before it. One of the most wondrous natural phenomena can be found on, or rather above, Light Island, as the Aurora Monstralis constantly follows Light Island around wherever it goes. Or does Light Island follow the Aurora Monstralis? One can never be too sure. Natural Island seasonals can now travel to the Colosseum. When Schmoochel goes over there, it decides to be the hero that everyone needed and brings costumes to the rest of the monster world, so now the rest of your clanbles can cosplay as Clamburgers. A new island has been found in the Pocket Dimension. An island for magicals. The magical single elementals get remote teleported to this new location by some ghasts in the ethereal meadow. Here, the magical elements can live in harmony. Slowly, each pure magical hybrid reveals itself, filling up the island's population and song. Then finally, Enchantling, quad elemental and boss of the magical class, appears. In its appearance, the horns of their island, a titan named Enchantler, whose name no one was sure of as it was lost to time but was eventually recovered, began to glow, and then suddenly, its eyes opened. It is rumored that these two beings share a link, possibly that the Enchantling is the younger, diminutive form of the Great Titan Enchantler. Or, you know, just that the Enchantling is just feeding off the Enchantler's monstromantic energies to figure itself more like the Enchantler, you never know. If a monster potentially turning into a Titan seems strange, then the Titan turning into a Colossal would seem even stranger. Enchantler, Titan of the Magical Sanctum, wanted to ascend and become a Colossal, but upon realizing how impossible, or near impossible, this task was, it fled to the Pocket Dimension. Wanting its very own family, it decided to take in the magical monsters and give them a home. Being in the Pocket Dimension can take quite the toll on the monster though, so it seems to have developed a strange growth out of its skin as a side effect of exposure. Chapter 3, Section 5, Post-Magical. At long last, the mysterious seasonals have revealed to us their forever abode where they stay for the rest of the year, when not celebrating their event or when not at their antipodal out-of-season event. Situated in the loft or attic of a wooden monster-made island, adorned with a lighthouse, the seasonal shanty has revealed itself. There are also several new seasonal friends to be found, such as the cake-like Jamboree, no eating, who celebrates Gold Island's anniversary month. But all will be revealed in due time. This island, instead of being a Colossal or Titan, is actually just a wooden boat with no sentience whatsoever. Newer seasonals, instead of immediately celebrating their event, will reveal themselves upon the shanty, wait a year in planning, and then go out to their event the next year. More news is that the natural seasonals also have the title of core seasonals. Gobblegord, however, is not a core seasonal. The rare Wobbucks decides to go on an adventure and finds itself on Ethereal Island. Maybe Super Ethereal is a legitimate class now? Finally, after so long, the Epic Wobbucks is revealed. Epic Wobbucks appear after only select Wobbucks are left to ferment, as they say, in the deeper vaults, developing a link with the Colossal and the island's element in both its look and sound being different from island to island. A new seasonal known as Clavavera reveals itself, and for now is planning its event of the Beat Hereafter on the seasonal shanty, and won't celebrate it yet for a bit. Similarly, the time-wielding Caralong, a seasonal monster celebrating the Crescendo Moon, reveals itself upon the shanty. Way up on the higher plane, it appears that Gold Island is not alone, as the new Amber Island is spotted. This island hosts the reunified halves of the Fire Colossal, and had been a safe haven from fire monsters ever since the split of the continent. And as such, it acts as a seed vault of sorts for the original Dawn of Fire monsters, holding vessels which can be turned into living eggs with the spark of life, similar to waking Wublins and reviving Celestials, the proper term for which is revitalized, such as how Wublins are woken up. Each vessel contains the essence of the monster depicted upon them. What we mean by their essence is basically every unique thing that makes that monster, and this is reflected in the eggs required to wake them up, if that's understandable. These vessels can expire though, so there is a limited amount of time to revitalize them, and not every vessel is out of storage at the same time. Everything about this island ties us back to the foundational elements of the monster world its very self, from the green trees of the continent to the amber of the Stablo Midhuricha making up the island itself, and even the castle of the island, which also has crystallized musical essence in it in relic form. Also on this island, several species of fire monster make their in-game appearance, which lore-wise, they have been on Firehaven and Fire Oasis. In other fiery news, the Fire Islands, like the natural islands before them, are in need of better castle upgrades. The problem is, though, while the natural crystals were available in abundance, despite what Muir Island's bio would have you believe about Skylight, there were only a few veins left of Pyrosite, and the monsters had barely just scrounged up enough to make castles for both Haven and Oasis. so now there's not really much left. The coin-sniffing seasonal monster Fiddle reveals itself upon the shanty, celebrating the Clover Spell event. Similarly green, the Vivane, critter-loving seasonal of Echoes of Eco, especially of those winglings, makes its first appearance upon the shanty with quite the sneezy part. Evermore, new seasonals are being found left and right. After years of investigation, the elusive, hard-to-track Spurt had revealed itself upon the shanty when it found an electric generator during a freak electric storm. This adventurous monster celebrates Perplex lore. Some speculate that it also may just be Dr. Warden's E-Spirit, who was transformed due to constant exposure to the monster world and its living ocean. That Freak Electric Storm familiar was actually heralding the very new, discovered seasonal monster Monculus, seasonal of life formula, aka the Spark of Life. This being is one of the first monsters ever created by the Colossals during early experimentation with Bubblerite statues and Crystalium in the Pocket Dimension. Eventually, after enough time spent around singing monsters, even the mute globes wished to cast aside their honorary singing monster title by evolving into the colorful Whizbang, the newly discovered seasonal of sky painting, where these new forms fill the sky with every color imaginable, and every mon is welcome to celebrate their monster pride. Even the Magical Islands, the newest of the modern islands, are getting so packed with how many monsters there are that even they need crystalline castles. Theirs, however, are made of those outer island crystals that originated from the Prism Gate during the Dawn of Fire. The fire monsters, being the mineralogical experts of the monster world, guide them to the crystals to help them build their castles. Amber Island begins to heat up as the hot and steamy crucible shatters out of the encasing amber. It appears that monsters, upon entering the crucible with relics and keys, have their evolutionary potential literally unlocked by said items in combination with the structure. The relics, which, reminder, are musical essence encased in amber, get melted down, making the sauna-like structure get hotter and hotter, and thus the monsters are recast as rare, or possibly epic, variants of themselves. Although, this system is not perfectly guaranteed to work 100% of the time. Upon a failed attempt to evolve a monster, an elemental flag will unfurl, boosting all chances of evolution to monsters of its element. A process still largely unknown. However, after any evolution attempt, either failed or succeeded, extra leftover heat from the crucible may be recast and retrieved in relic form, or reused in another evolution. Evolutions in the crucible, unlike regular rares or epics, are always available. The final seasonal monster, the well-learned and knowledgeable, bookish if you so prefer, Bookworm, seasonal of Mindboggle, makes its appearance upon the shanty. Finally, the seasonals are all united. Similarly to the seasonals, the mythical class is also rapidly expanding in size, starting with the Lonesome Strombonin, who, like Ajub and Yostrich before it, brought some very interesting decorations with it. The Colossals, forever asleep in their own dream space and nearing lucidity as they do wish to commune with each other once more, summon the Mythicals to their true home, Mythical Island, an island based on the principles of wanting to reunite with one's kin. Additionally, the island exists solely within this dream space. Here, the Mythicals are greeted by the Catalyst, the personification of dreams itself, who is thought to have always existed in this dream space within the reveries of every slumbering being. The Catalyst is the greatest and only practitioner of Dreamcraft, a type of summoning magic wherein the summonee is sleeping whilst it happens. Although, through this magic, may the most wild thoughts of the imagination be reified. The Catalyst, once gathered enough energy from the strings betwixt its legs, may produce a spore to be bred with any mythical monster's eggs to create the Dream Mythicals, monsters envisioned within the dreams of the Mythicals. To note, the moon in the monster world symbolizes both fantastical travel and far-stretched aspirations, and, symbolically, is the mythical sigil's eclipsing twin moons, which also symbolize the monsters truly belonging to more than one world, and the prevalence of singular moon imagery on the island symbolizes that the Mythicals have finally reached their true home. Now, on the topic of sleep, I wonder when those slumbering colossals will finally awaken from their slumbers. And that's where we are today! The Colossing of Monster Glyphics. During the waning years of the Dawn of Fire, two Colossals were troubled, worrying that peace and stability in the monster world couldn't last forever. While both believed the best way to prepare for the future was to strengthen the musical abilities of the singing monsters, they disagreed on how to best go about it. One Colossal contended that individual training, conducted in a special environment and focused on each monster's unique craft, was the answer. It found a deserted landmass and imbued it with its life force to create the Colosseum, where monsters could empower themselves to become better performers in the conservatory. This was later revealed to have been a timely decision, as it was not long after the inscription missing. age was done, splintering the continent into many pieces and signaling the end of the Dawn of Fire. The other Colossal, inspired by the actions of their friend, chose another landmass to shift their power into, taking along a piece of the Amber, containing an important figure to act as the island's centerpiece. There, it created a prophecy that foretold of a time when monsters singing together and being united in song would help to restore balance in the monster world. The Tribal Island Prophecy. At one point in history, few could have foreseen the formation of Tribal Island. After all, the Colossals and their island hosts were fated to go their separate ways, never to rejoin. Were they not? The advent of Tribal Island represents the fulfillment of a prophecy from primitive times, in which greater bonds than ever before will be forged between the caretakers of the monster realm, and harmony will once more be achieved. In-game description of rares. Introducing super valuable, ultra coveted rare monsters. These special versions of your favorite characters are only available to buy or breed every once in a while. Log in often to make sure you don't miss out. In-game description of epics. Epics are the ultimate forms of your favorite monsters. Rarer than rares, they have unique breeding combinations per island, generate even more currency, and cannot breed. All of these traits come together to create the most impressive and coveted creatures in the monster world. The excerpt from Mysteries of the Living Ocean, which mentions Glubbers. Since the immemorial, the living ocean has been the cradle upon which the monster world rests. But what do we truly know about it? From far-flung rubes of deep-sea leviathans known as Glubbers, to scattered reports of a horned creature dashing to and fro upon ocean currents. This tome will strive to dive into as much detail as can be mustered. Where to begin? Let's examine some fossil evidence that dates back to monster prehistory, all the way back during the Dawn of Fire. Evidence of a large aquatic creature that could support rocky structures on its back have been found strewn across the living ocean floor. Curiously, these remains are accompanied by debris that resembles party balloons and confetti. Researchers are puzzled by the discovery of these items side by each. Clearly, more expeditions need to be undertaken to discover more. Things I wish to include but don't know where to do so. The Jammerlands, from Jammersplash, which are located somewhere near Fire Oasis. I would like to thank the MSM Wiki version history page, the Fire Oasis pre-show, various episodes of My Singing Monsters Live, and especially episode 111. Also, the Handler Hangouts, and just all the My Singing Monsters trailers, because that's the story, like a picture book. I just have to put that in here. Like, just direct transcription from trailer to doc. It's really great. Thank you.